Okay, so welcome to Empowered Elites team call for January 17th. Super excited for our call tonight. Since I don't want to waste time because I know there's a lot to cover and a lot of you have questions, I'm just going to keep all our housekeeping updates for the team page for tomorrow. But before we get started, does anybody have any rank advancements or recognition that they want to shout out before we start the call?
Glenna Terwigler is Emerald as of, I know, after our last call last week, but on Thursday.
She'll be officially this week, you mean?
She got it on Thursday, but it was since our last call, so I haven't gotten to announce her.
Well, congrats, Glenna.
Yay.
Work. Anybody else? I know I don't have any this week. No? Okay. All right, so this is a topic that so many of you have been saying that you would love some help or some guidance, in and have a lot of questions about. So I figured I would invite two of the couples that I think just do such an incredible job of this in their business, in their lives. And this is, if you're not familiar, Danielle Whitford and Meredith Kelly and I, we all kind of started around similar times. And we all knew of each other, but we never really connected all that much until we went to New Leadership Conference together last January, and became really good friends since then. So I asked both of them to hop on. Danielle with her husband, Zack, and Meredith with her now fiance, Chris. Congratulations, guys, by the way. And I'm just going to go through some questions with them that have been common questions that you guys have had that should be really helpful. And then at the end, if you do have specific questions, if they're willing to answer them, we'll have time for that too. So just to kind of give you a quick rundown, Meredith Kelly is the founder of, it started as Fly Girl, and now you call it Fly Team, right?
If you want the real story, it started as Team Flex Your Health Nuts. And then it was Ignite the Fight, and then it was Fly Girl, and then now it's the Fly Team. So guys, if you're having trouble coming up with the team name, don't worry, it can evolve with you.
Yeah, sure.
Enough.
She is currently a 7-star combined coach and all-star legend, a member of, it's the Boston Market Council, right? And she is the founder of a 2-time elite team, top 200. They ended last year at 114 in the entire company. So absolutely incredible leadership and incredible team. And Danielle Whitford is the founder of Dedication Nation. She is currently 6-star qualifying. Huge congrats for that. 2017 elite team, elite coach, ranked 185 in the company. And she was also the founder of a premier team for 2016. So she is also a founder of the Market Council in her area, and has been coaching since 2014, January, right? And then became full-time because she was working a full-time corporate job up until a year in. So January 2015, she became a full-time coach. So just a little bit about them before we dive in case you're not familiar with their amazingness. But okay, so we'll dive right into questions. So whoever wants to go first is fine. But our first question is, was your significant other supportive when you first started coaching? And if not, how did you help that shift?
Okay, I guess we can go first. So I was really lucky in the sense that Chris was super supportive right off the bat. It wasn't to the point where he wanted to be involved in the business, or necessarily, and definitely didn't want to be doing the workouts. Like he would go in a different room when I'd work out and be like, didn't want to hear it, didn't want to see it. I don't know why you were so weird about that. He's like, T25 is bad for your knees. Like you can't do that in the living room. Like kind of shitting on it. But sorry, I know there's children here. Sorry, but crapping on it. But the one thing he loved though was Shakeology. And you can tell that story a little bit in terms of the first year. Like why were you supportive? I guess that's a better question.
I don't know, we joke about this all the time, but as a guy being in a relationship, it's I don't know. It's one of those things for me. Like it doesn't matter what she'd be doing. Like I would support it no matter what. I mean, we're kind of in this together, and I know it sounds cheesy, but like I made a joke once, but like, you know, she started selling drugs and that was what she was really into. Like I would be supportive.
I don't know about that.
Obviously it's a bad example, but like you get behind what she's into. Obviously, for one, it made her happy. Two, it was something that was making her better on a daily basis. And we kind of grew into it together. And, you know, for me, I grew up and I was always an athlete, and, you know, I don't know if the guys are on this call, everybody knows you kind of go cycling through all sorts of different protein powders and everything to try to keep up and all the workouts and stuff. And when we had Shakeology when I had it for the first time, it was back in her old apartment when we first started dating. She kind of pulled the bag out from underneath the island cabinet and was like, oh yeah, it's, you know, there's this kind of protein shake thing.
So I just expected him to knock it.
No, I had no problem. I mean, that was back when I was trying to still get my foot in the door with her. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll drink it. That's fine.
He was still courting me.
It really streamlined everything for me. You know, I'd have a whole cabinet full of stuff that I would work with and spend a ton of money on. You know, kind of when we started to drink it together, it was something that we did from the beginning. And for the first week and a half, 2 weeks that I did it, it was an easy system for me to hop into. And I definitely felt the difference right off the rip for me physically and the workouts that I was doing. Having that shake in the morning meant a lot for me, and it kind of put us on the same track. I think, you know, the health and fitness was something I always struggled with from, you know, even past relationships and the balance and work-life balance. Working out for me was always, you know, once you get out of college and something you have to pay attention to, you're not in that environment anymore. It was tough for me to keep myself in that lane. And I think when we started to drink the shake together, it brought us closer together, and I felt more comfortable doing what I needed to do to stay on track. And that was when I first started to see a change in me physically to begin with, and then her too. It was an easy switch for me to be supportive of it altogether. But at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of things that she could be doing, and paying attention to your health and fitness and using this as a trigger to start helping other people was kind of an easy thing for me to back. And I would never, I know the drug thing's a joke, but you know, you get behind what they're doing and support them. But she was focused and serious about it. And I could tell it was, you know, it wasn't just some sort of a, I don't know,
scam.
No, not just a scam, but like something you were doing for any other reason than for you.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was going to say is like, initially when I got into it, like I really needed this, and we'll shut up so Dee and Zack can talk. But honestly, I needed it. If you guys don't know my story, I can give you the cliff notes. Like I was kind of in a super funk when we started dating. Like despite how happy he made me, I was feeling pretty low about my self-confidence and where I was in my mindset. And a lot of that is I was an athlete growing up and had completely fallen out of my routine. I gained 25 pounds and felt like crap. So I knew if I wanted to keep him, if I wanted to, you know, be in this relationship and have a healthy relationship with him, it had to start with me having a healthy relationship with myself. So I think getting into that routine and starting with health and fitness, and I really needed the home workouts simply because I was traveling for work. And that's the only way I could do it, because I knew I wasn't going to go to a hotel gym and things when I was on the road. So that's how I really started. So I think that was a lot of it was Chris seeing it, me doing it for me. I wasn't doing it for the money making initially. So I can see where if you're going in this as a business and you're saying, I'm going to make a bunch of money in the first year, we all know you really don't make a whole lot of money the first year, even the first 2 years. So I think that's where people can have trouble with spouses when you're talking about it from a business perspective right off the bat, instead of something that you're doing for you and for your own personal growth. So I think that's really what kind of changed the game for us and allowed him to sort of come on that journey with me. And then when all of a sudden a year later, I was like, I'm kind of like making a little bit of money with this, you know, then it was like an additional perk that was kind of a bonus to what else was happening. So
I think I see a lot of the guys too, that at least a few that I've kind of talked to that have a different mindset, is we all live in a really immediate culture nowadays. You know, you send somebody a text, you expect a text back. You send an email in the work environment, you expect it back before noon. The time of return for us is pretty short, and especially with guys. You know, you can talk all you want about growing the business, but this business takes time. And, you know, if you're not doing it for you to begin with, and it's not something that you are committed to growing over the course of time, like you're never going to get there. And I think a lot of the stress comes on, some of the financial piece is, everybody wants to make money right off the bat. And, we did too. But just like anything, it takes some time, and you got to understand that, you're doing it together to get to that point. It's going to take a little time, but, kind of splitting up tasks and doing it together is how we
and I think
made that through.
That's questions 2 and 3. So we'll hold our thoughts there. So Danielle and Zach, I'll hand it over to you.
Did you want us to cover the same question, Dana?
Yes.
Okay. You want to read the question again, Zach?
No, that's okay.
All right.
I was not as on board right away. Danielle had a couple other failed experiments in this sort of arena where she did like Arbonne and Leah Sophia and a couple of those ones where.
And when he says I did them, it means like I bought the stuff and then I didn't do anything with it.
But yeah, she used it as an excuse to buy a bunch of products that then would go bad eventually. Or she would end up wearing all the jewelry or something like that.
That's true.
So when she started dabbling in the Beachbody stuff, I was skeptical because from my experience, it's been this thing that she starts and quits, and it's just going to cost me a ton of money, and we were already strapped for cash. I mean, we were pregnant. Well, we had Lily. We had one kid, and we were living at my parents' house. We have so much credit card debt that we actually moved back in with my parents.
Well, I lost my job 3 months into being pregnant with Lily, and then we had to move in with his parents, thankfully, to stay on our feet because it was so bad.
Yeah. So this other thing happened. I'm saying, like, we can't be spending all this money and stuff. And she's like, well, there's no product. You don't have to hold product for people. And so I was like, okay, fine.
Well, because up to that point, I had already been working on my own health and fitness. Like I had already, those of you that know my story know I started with Weight Watchers because I didn't know what to do, and I plateaued really bad. And he was always super supportive of my weight loss journey. Like he was always like, that was never a question. He wanted me to be the best me that I can be. And if it makes, kind of like what Chris said, if it makes me happy, like he was totally on board with that. It was the spending money piece that he was not on board with. But with this, it was, I'm going to get Shakeology anyway. Like,
right.
And you tried it because we've been drinking some some not great protein drinks.
It's those Arbonne shakes.
So I don't know. Yeah, but then we switched to something that was crappy. I don't know. Like it was just these crappy garbage protein shakes. And so he tried Shakeology. He's like, oh, this actually tastes like something. This is kind of great. And I'm like, so if I'm not spending any more money, but I can do this business in addition, isn't that kind of a good thing? And somehow I negotiated my way into it. I don't really know.
Well, it was sort of a thing where you shared with me other people who have found success, and that's a thing that's actually possible to do.
And if I remember correctly, most of those stories were met with a,
Yeah, I was very skeptical.
Like it was totally like when we talk about like planting the seed with people, like with prospects, spouses are no different. Like with him, it was very much I have to keep sharing, keep telling you what I'm doing. And I would translate, you're probably going to say this, but like I would translate it into terms that mattered to him. You're right. The money doesn't come right away. Like you have to put in so much more work than you're going to get paid for in the first year. Like that's just the way it is to grow a business. But every time I got paid, every time I signed someone up with a challenge pack or sign up a new coach, I'd say, guess what? That's $40 in our bank account. Guess what? That's $50 in our bank account. Those people weren't dollar signs to me, but I knew that for him, he needed to know what the reward was. So when I got my first $400 check, I'd say, guess what just got deposited into our bank account? $400. And he'd be like, that's awesome. Like, and those little things over time with me staying consistent and getting excited about these things got him a little more excited about those things.
That's one thing I would suggest to people who have a spouse who's not on board right away is making sure there's good communication between what you're doing and what you see happening on the business side. Don't just sit there with your face in your phone all day and expect that they think that you're working. That was part of our problem, was that I thought I would sit there and she'd be on her phone. Like at night we put the kids to bed and then she'd be on her phone, and I would think, why aren't, we could be spending time together. We don't have that much time as it is. But as she started to communicate what she was doing and how it was helping us in the long term, I started to kind of understand, and I would ask questions and kind of get the insider track on what was happening.
And I feel like the more I shared about those things, the more interested he got. Like the more you'd be like, he could use the terminology with me, like, hey, did you, hit Success Club yet? Like he has no idea what that means or why that's important, but like he knows it's something good, and he knows it's something I'm working towards. So little by little became more and more about us and our business, even though he might not ever, he has never, I don't think he's ever logged into his coach online office. I'm pretty sure.
You've done it for
It's
me.
been by accident, if at all. He's done Beachbody On Demand, but not his online office. Like, he's never logged in. But I always say it's a team effort because, which I know we're going to get into that later, but because, you know, he's interested and he cares, and communication, like you said, is 100% the key. Well, it's the key in your relationship anyway. Like, let's all be honest, like, cut the crap. If you're not doing Beachbody, communication is still 100% a thing. And we did have tension in the beginning, I remember, and like, we have a very strong relationship. We've been together for almost 15 years, together for forever, and we've always had really good communication. But for some reason, there was this period of time in the beginning where I was so excited about my business that I just forgot. I just like didn't think about it, because I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I know that it's productive. I know that it's doing something good. But like he said, he just sees my face in my phone, ignoring my kids, ignoring dinner, ignoring him, ignoring the house, like ignoring these other things that are important, because I'm not telling him what I'm doing. So I got very, very, very good about saying, I am talking to 3 people right now. I need 5 minutes. Like, it was just that simple. He'd be like, okay. And he would take the kids, because he knew, okay, 5 minutes, she's going to talk to 3 people, and it's something good for her and for this business. Okay. He'd assume it was 15 to 20 minutes, but
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, fine. But at least he knew what I was doing, that it wasn't just mindlessly scrolling Facebook, which we both are guilty of doing.
The more important thing for me, as it started to kind of happen, was that I knew that she wasn't happy where she was. And I knew that in the past, except for a couple of things, in general, she's got very good judgment, as opposed to the Arbonne and things like that.
Hard times the charm. It's fine.
So I really had to be like, okay, she is doing something about it. I could see her constantly doing things. So her putting in effort up front and telling me about it was really helpful. But I knew that she wasn't happy where she was working, and I knew that I trusted her, and that if she put her mind to something, she's going to follow through. And I had to trust that if I allowed her to have time to do it and to give it a real shot, that she could make something of it. And then, you know, a year later, she was home from her job and staying home with our kids, and it's been going gangbusters since, because she continues to keep the pedal to the metal. So now I believe, I guess.
And I know that, I don't know if this is, I'm going to like look at your list of questions, Dana, because I feel like I'm going to get ahead of myself. Oh, I got to use my other thumb for this stupid phone.
We are kind of shifting into the second part.
Sorry, yeah. I could just transition right to the second question if you guys don't mind listening to us talk if you want, because that's kind of what I'm thinking of is.
Yeah, because I think that's so huge what you're saying about communicating what you're doing, because you are changing your schedule. You are investing time somewhere else, and it's important for them to know what you're actually doing and that it is something productive moving you forward. And it kind of shifts into that, the belief, like, how are you sharing that belief with them if that wasn't something that just like clicked to them from the get-go? So the second question was, how did you help your spouse understand your vision, your mission, the time that you were going to put into this business, and the sacrifices that you had to make to actually make time in your schedule for your business?
Okay, so what I was going to share about, I guess I'll share about after this, but for me, again, it was communication. Like, it was always telling him about what I was doing and where I was going. And it was really hard in the beginning because I had really big dreams coming into this, like leaving my job. For those of you that don't know, I was making twice as much money as compared to what he was making in my corporate job. Like, it was always the plan that I was going to be the one pulling in the big bucks, so to speak, and like the insurance and all the like those like big things were going to come from me. So when I started shifting and saying, I don't want to work anymore, like I don't want to work in a corporate job, like I want this to be my thing, I know for a fact it scared the crap out of him. Like, it was a really scary, especially with how much debt we had and how much, you know, how many money troubles we had in our first few years of marriage. I knew that was really scary for him. But Zack is also, I know Zack well enough to know that he's always content with where he's at. Like, he's never really thought about what's next. Like, if I'm happy with where I am, why would I think about changing? So I know that for me, if I want him to start seeing my vision, I have to keep planting seeds. Again, like I have to keep sharing every time I think about it. Like, oh, it'll be so cool when I quit my job, when I can be home with my kids, when we can pay off our debt. And yes, I got a lot of the, yeah, okay, like rolling of the eyes and like snide remarks, but, but I think the big shift for him was when I forced him to go to Summit with me. He came to Summit, not this last Summit, but the one before was the first Summit we went to. And I remember that was the first time when we were riding home, because we drove, we live in Wisconsin, so we drove to Nashville. We were riding home. He was actually opening up to me about his dreams and his vision, all of these things that it was like a mind-blowing conversation to me because we'd never talked about some of these things. Like I assumed some things, but I didn't know how he wanted to live his life or what he wanted to do. So it was really cool to start hearing him say that. And then like little by little it became, whenever I would say, well, when I bring you home from your job, he would always go, yeah, right, okay. And slowly it became, well, when you bring me home, and then he would talk about what he wanted to do. So that was huge for me because that took a year and a half, just to be clear. So that was like summer of 2015. I've been coaching since January 2014. So it took him a year and a half to get to that point. When did I quit my corporate job? I quit, a year in. It was January 21st, 2014 is when I started coaching, and I was home February 9th of 2015. And it was a big shift. Like it was not where I wanted to be income wise, but I knew that I had to put my back against the wall to really get to that next level that I was pushing toward. And I felt a shift in my business. Like you'll know when it's the right time. I knew it was right. There were a lot of signs, and I can talk to you guys forever about that, but there were a lot of things that just kind of clicked at the same time that showed me it was the right path. And one of the biggest pieces actually was Zack, because I had made the decision. I had already made the decision in my head I was going to leave my job. And I was so nervous to tell him. Like I was like shaking. Like, and I don't get scared to tell people stuff. Like that's not who I am. I'm very tell it like it is, and I'll take whatever you say. It's fine. But I was scared to tell him because I had already made the decision. So there was no, like in my mind, there was no turning back. And we sat down and talked about it because I shared with them. I assume a lot of you have read You're a Badass. There's a chapter in that book that I always reference. She's talking about the car, how she desperately needs a new car, and how she should have gotten the Honda or Mazda or whatever it is. I can't remember, but ended up getting the Audi. And it was the year that she made her first 6 figures or her first $1 million, and she did all these things and paid off the car. But if she had bought the comfortable car, the easy car to get, she wouldn't have done those things. So I'm sharing that excerpt with him and telling him how, I just really think I need to go for it. And his response wasn't what I thought it was going to be. His response was actually, well, I think that's true. He's like, I've heard a lot of things, like a lot of interviews with like comedians and actors and stuff when they get asked, when was the right time to do that thing that you're doing? And they always say, you just have to do it. And so he's like, if you think you can do it, I support you. He's like, we'll figure it out. It's not like you're going to lose all of your years of experience and your education. Like in his mind, it's like, there's always a plan B. It's fine. But for me, I couldn't have a plan B. Like I needed to go for it. And things just flew from there. So yeah, he was the reason why that shifted actually.
And as a spouse, it's hard because you have, I didn't want to be a part of it necessarily. Like I wasn't interested in also coaching along with her. So it's kind of hard to let it go, sort of, let her take control of that and just let it happen how it's going to happen. It's hard. You have to trust that they're going to follow through on what they say they're going to do. But it can work out if you put in the time and the dedication for it. So back to you.
Yeah. I think you guys summed it up perfectly, and I don't want to drag it out too much longer, but I think the biggest thing I would say is a tip for you guys, like if you feel, or what was the original question, Dana? I just want to make sure
how did you help them understand your vision, your mission, and the time and sacrifices that you would be putting in?
Okay, so because the biggest thing I would say is like, if you have a vision, which you should all have a vision, like, and not just like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and make X amount of dollars. Like, where do you see yourself 6 months, 12 months, 3-5 years from now? Like, if money wasn't an option, what would your dream life look like? I always ask my coaches that, like, what would your dream day look like? Like, if you didn't have to go to work, like, would you go to that job because you love it so much, or would you do something differently? Like, what would your perfect morning look like? Like, kind of starting there. But I think kind of coming back to the question is, if you're going to communicate your vision to your spouse, they better be part of it. So have a joint vision. Like, I'm looking at our vision board that needs updated right in front of me, but it has like my new car on there, which I got last year, but like also pay off the truck, which is Chris's truck. And I have like our dream house, like buy our dream house. It's this random picture of this beautiful house that we'd love to buy a couple years from now. But like, that's us.
It's
like,
it's about doing it together and reverse
so it's
engineering
like, it's incorporating like our goals, not just mine, and having it be like this wish list of things. It's like we sat down and talked about that and said, okay, what can we make possible with this? And then going back to the sacrifices, and I'll let you talk, sorry, is like, if you think about this as a second job, like if you're working a full-time job, because I worked a full-time job for the first, 2 full years of coaching. This is a second job. So you're going to have to put in hours as if it's a second job. So I know it's like Zack was saying, when Danielle was sitting there with her phone or facing her phone, that's what it looks like, but that's work. So if you have to go to Starbucks for a couple hours and, make it your job there, then do that. But I think a lot of the beauty of this business is that you can do it on your time and on your own terms.
What you were good at in terms of showing the vision, in terms of tools, is not just communicate, but include your other half in what you're doing. Like Meredith would run posts by me, even when I wasn't into it for the first year. And I think this is kind of a fun question, but like, who on this call from, who is like the coach on this call, raise your hand if your best friend, the person that's closest to you, not your spouse, is in this business with you. Raise your hand as like your best friend, person that's right there, always been through it. How many? One? My best friend, Meredith's old friend. Like, your best friends aren't in it because you made a change. And like, where your friendship was when you started to go down this path of doing the Beachbody thing, what was good for you wasn't necessarily where your best friend was in that kind of same life set, right? And you have to do what's necessary for you, but at the same time, like, you have to include your other person in what you're doing. She ran posts by me. She, even if there was one person on our team call, even if it was her mother, we went over like topics to cover together. She included me from the beginning. And that's kind of how I developed this. Okay, well, you're treating this as a business. And I know that she was on her phone. Like, that time was hers, even if we were sitting in the living room. Like, she was doing it with a purpose, but I always understood a communication piece, understood that I was a part of it. And then going to the vision piece, like, you have to, it's a scary concept to do together, because like, you look 5 years down the road in a relationship, like, that's kind of tough and intimidating for guys to look that far in advance. But like, if you reverse engineer where you want to be, like, her working at Oracle wasn't going to get us to that point. Like, I didn't, I was more into working this Beachbody thing together than listening about, Rishi and the database deals in Richmond, Virginia over dinner. It's like, we had this common connection with it and just kind of ran with it. So reverse engineering an idea back and figuring out how you guys are going to do it together, even if you're not in the business. Like, I know guys like Michael Harkey, we joke all the time, like, he runs Liz's numbers and does all kind of the back of the house stuff. Like, Nick Reuter does the back of the house stuff. Like, there's a million ways for us to do it together.
That's question number 3.
Oh, I'm skipping that. But I mean, the reality is, like, it's the inclusion thing. You're not going to be able to get somebody on board right away with your exact same vision. It takes time to build it.
Well,
but
you won't get them on board if you ostracize them.
Yeah, exactly. You got to include them. And I think that's what we do. A lot of us do with our best friends too, is, like, we start to go down this path and it's not the same friendship, and it just kind of drives a wedge between the friend isn't interested. Like, that's why a lot of us don't have those friends that are on board. And it's something that we need to do with our spouses, to do it together and communicate that back and forth. So.
Well, and one thing too, this is a little bit off topic, but I just want to share it too, because I thought it was a good insight. They did a spouse panel up here in Boston at a Super Saturday a couple quarters ago. And I think it was Candace Talbot and her husband who brought up the notion, and this, take it however you want it, is that Beachbody is not usually the problem. The problem is usually there in the relationship, whether it be lack of communication or lack of vision or, I don't know, plans for the future, like whatever problem. Am I freezing? No? Okay. So whatever problem Beachbody is bringing to the surface is usually because Beachbody is a catalyst, and we're growing as individuals. And a lot of the time it brings out some of those downfalls that we have in a relationship that we need to work on. So I don't know if that makes sense. Everyone's freezing, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting head nods or not, but usually when you're saying, okay, Beachbody is taking you away from me, or Beachbody's issue, it's usually because there's a communication breakdown, or there's someone feeling underappreciated, or someone feeling like you're not making enough time for them, or something like that, where you need to figure out, okay, where are we actually on different pages, and how do we get ourselves back on the same page so that maybe we can compromise and find that middle ground. Makes sense?
I love that, Meredith. I've heard that. I think it was at Summit they did a panel like that too, and same concept. But that's awesome.
Yeah, I know Brigitte Linford talks about it in a video about for your own personal self, like Beachbody. Usually, sometimes people will walk away from it because they say it like has stressed them out or whatever, but usually it's because it's bringing out some quality in you that you need to work on, and you're not ready to work on it yet.
Right.
So it's easier to just like walk away from it and brush the issue back under the rug and act like it doesn't exist. But somewhere down the line in your life, it's going to come back up, whether it's a personal issue or issue in your relationship or something. So Beachbody kind of highlights that and gives you that opportunity to work through that and decide like, okay, where do we need to put in more effort? Where do we need to realign ourselves on an individual basis, and also as a relationship or as a couple in our relationship?
Love that. Can anybody relate to that? Okay, so on to number 3. Now, if they don't work the business with you, which I know, Chris, you've kind of shifted over time, but I know, Zack, you don't like per se work the actual business. So this is good because we'll kind of get both perspectives. But if they don't work the business with you, what are other ways that they help you so that you have time to put in work on your business? So Danielle, like if you want to start with this, and then maybe Chris, you want to kind of chime in of how that's changed over time for you?
All right. So yeah, Zack does not work the business as a coach. However, he helps out. I call him a unicorn husband because he's very okay. I mean, I should say very okay. I'm sure when we get to the point where he's home and we can afford, like to have a maid come in and stuff, I'm sure he'll be totally okay with giving up those responsibilities. But he does take on a lot more of the housework. I do stay home with the kids. I watch that. I'm with the kids all day. I take them to school. Or Lily to school. I play with this one all day. I put her down for a nap. I do all that stuff. Keep the house mostly in working order. But I've also been very vocal about the fact that doing laundry and doing the dishes is not going to grow our business. So the dishes is one that I do. Okay, I do the dishes.
You can't, just because you can't stand.
Because I can't stand. It's literally one of those stressors in my life. Like if the kitchen is messy, I like lose my mind. I can't help it. But laundry, he does the laundry without me even asking. He takes care of the kids. Like if he comes home and I say I have like 3 coach calls, he mostly happily makes dinner. Takes the kids to their events in the evening. He happily cleans up on like the weekends. Happily. He cleans up on the weekends, minimal grumbling.
When Dee decided, to Danielle, to make this a thing, I told her, if you're going to be staying home, it doesn't mean I expect you to be a housewife, because you're going to basically replacing the job that you did at work
45 hours a week
with the job that you're going to try to do now. Plus now you have the kids bothering you. So, which might not always be easy, because it's not easy for me to go to work all day. I wake up early so I can get my workouts done and do stuff so that I can go to work, so I can come home, so I can help her have time to do her business. So it's not always easy. I come home and let the kids have their iPads for a while I just not think about anything. And then I make dinner and we try to do it. And I try as much as I can to not be a grumpus about it. It's not always easy, but those are things that they're easy for me to do. I don't really want to be a part of the business side of it. So those are easy things. Like I know how to do the laundry. I know, we can make dinner. I mean, try new stuff, and hopefully, and with every program that you get, you have a whole new recipe book. So, and everything's on demand now. So,
little pitch.
Yeah. I guess I could be a coach.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, try to do those little things. It really helps out, because an extra 15 minutes could be another challenge pack sale, which is more money in your pocket, which is another possible coach that's helping you build and grow and do more stuff. And that's probably not the right way to think about it.
And I think what he said, he actually said that to me when I quit my job, was he said, you're not a housewife, you're not a stay-at-home mom, you're a work-from-home mom. So when the kids are busy and the house isn't burning down, like you have, like that's what you're supposed to be doing, is growing your business. Because our focus is getting out of debt. Like that's, especially this year, like we are like laser focused on that piece. And for him, he's like, I'd rather have a messy house and have our debt paid off than have a perfectly clean house, kids who never have screen time, which is like never happens for those of you that don't have kids. It never happens. Like never. Even when I was working, they had the screen time. I'm sorry, not sorry, life. So it's those kinds of like sacrifices that he makes that help me, that, you know, I don't feel the pressure of having to have a perfect house and perfect kids and perfect everything in addition to working a full-time business, which is really, it's that pressure that you need to remove from the relationship. Like that, and it's unsaid pressure. Like even if your spouse isn't saying things, if they aren't saying it's okay that you work your business instead of doing the dishes or instead of doing the laundry, like that's pressure that they're probably, speaking of the spouses now, like that's pressure that your coach spouse is probably putting on themselves, especially if they're a mom. I'm not going to lie, like mom guilt is a real thing. It comes with the territory. So, you know, if you haven't had that conversation, I highly encourage you to have a very open, very honest, very loving conversation with each other about it, because there are probably a lot of things that are going unsaid if you're not communicating, like that pressure that you automatically put on yourself.
It was important for us to know what the roles were going to be going forward. Once she quit her job and she was at home now, we had to know what was to be expected of each of us. And we didn't necessarily have a full-on conversation, but we definitely had mini conversations as things came up and like, okay, what's going to be going on now? Like, is this how it's going to be? Or is this like right now you're pushing for qualification and I need to step up right now? Or what's going to be happening? Because there's a lot of factors, and it's just something you have to work through as you're working through it.
But we've said it a million times already, but communication is everything. Like,
have to talk to
you have to, because
no one can read minds.
And I think that's a really good point too, is that there's different waves in this business of effort. Like in terms of like, you know, when you're pushing for Success Club, or you're pushing for a rank advancement, or, you know, you're pushing for Elite, or you're pushing for different things that maybe you're not pushing as hard all year, but there's like little pockets of time where like, okay, I'm not at Success Club and it's the 25th of the month. I'm like having a panic attack over here. Can you please just take the kids for a few hours so I can go send a ton of messages? Like be very, like, and that was something that I really liked about our communication, was that I was very big about getting him to know kind of the terminology. So he knew Success Club was a monthly thing. Rank was a consistent thing. Elite and Premier are yearly things. Like he kind of like, and like bonuses are quarterly. Like he kind of like learned all these like different things. So he knows he'll know if I've set him at Success Club, he'll know there's not going to be a crazy Success Club push this month because I've locked it in. And just being like, making sure they know those things. And the more you bring them in to your world, even if they don't want anything to do with signing people up or running challenge groups, the more you kind of bring them in, the better it'll be, because they won't feel like they're not a part of it. They'll feel like they still have skin in the game, so to speak. Like they're going to feel like they know what's going on and they're a part of this world instead of feeling like they're outsiders, which I think is really important too.
Agreed.
All right, Meredith, Chris, it's all you.
I love that. And I just have to highlight, I love what you said about the roles and that you each kind of know what your expectations are. I think that's awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Meredith.
I mean, I think they nailed it with everything, really. I mean, I think the one thing I wanted to say is that, like we said, the first year of coach, like Chris is now involved in the business and he runs his own guys groups and that kind of stuff. But for the first year, he really wasn't involved firsthand. It was more so from, you know, supporting me and asking what he could do. But that's one thing props to him. I mean, constantly, he saw me busting my ass like the first year and was like, or after I realized like I have challengers, like I'm creating a business. I didn't really know this was going to happen. You know, I didn't have that belief in myself that I could make anything out of it. So as it was happening and ramping up, and I'm working my full-time job and traveling all over the East Coast, I was like, holy crap, like having mental breakdowns, but on the reg, like not sleeping because I'm a very high energy, like I can't sleep when I have things in my mind type of person. And he was constantly asking me, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? But one thing I also am, and I think Dana and Danielle may know this, is I'm a little bit of a control freak. Like I hate the idea of like giving up, like relinquishing any type of control, or like feeling like, no, like I do the laundry and I do the dishes this way and I cook dinner that way. Like that was my thing. Like, God, I just hired a VA finally to outsource graphics because it takes me an hour to make a freaking Success Club board. So it's like, that was something I should have done a year ago. So that whole first year, I really struggled with like not being able to do it all. Like, I wanted to be able to run the business and work my job and do the dishes and have the laundry done and clean the apartment because I knew he was busy too. But finally, after him asking multiple times, like, what can I do to help so you don't have a mental breakdown? I finally had to say, can you like do the grocery shopping and cook? Like, that's, if you can do that, and then I can do my calls while you're cooking and then actually have dinner at a decent hour and not be eating tuna fish out of a can, which he loves. That was something that, okay, now we have some balance back. But I had to tell him that, and I had to take him up on that offer. So I think my advice to you guys would be that, like, if they're willing to help, take them up on the offer, but sometimes you may have to ask. They might not always be the one that's extending the olive branch. So I think kind of helping with that. I don't know, is there anything you want to add on that?
Well, I mean, the irony of it is I have a great time going to the grocery store and like cooking, and you didn't ask for a long time for whatever reason, but like once you do, it's like, yeah, absolutely, I'll take that on. That's no problem. But the other thing that, I mean, there's a few things to say. I don't remember what the last question was, but in this business, and I knew that she was in it from the beginning. Like, her first video was in my old apartment in Dorchester on the floor with like a volleyball.
That sounds really weird. It was an exercise video. Like, I was demonstrating an ab exercise.
Kids on the couch, for Christ's sakes. But there are, and you guys all know, there are so many variables and so many things that can happen in this business to cause people to fail or to walk away. And I, from the beginning, was committed to not being one of those reasons that she didn't make it. And, it didn't matter what it was, but, if on the off chance something went wrong and it wasn't for her and she went back to her corporate job, even now, I will not be one of the reasons that she didn't make it. And I think, that was from the beginning. Oh, it's true. From the beginning, that was, it didn't matter what it was or how we did it or what we were going to do. And, the more I saw her do it and the more that she did it and the more she showed up, just like you do with any of your challengers, like the more believability you have, the more I started to pick up on it. And then all of a sudden I tried max 30 and got better results than anything that I've done in the past. And, then I started to go down my own transformation, help my father. And the next thing you know, like, I'm on my own journey. We're all on the same vision, on the same road, but like, it wasn't how it was for the first year. We laugh about her doing like T25 and max 30. I was more worried about the neighbors downstairs in her old rickety apartment, like coming up and being pissed off that she was doing max 30 at 7:30, which like,
that was actually my plan to get them involved.
We went out and bought,
sign up.
We went out and bought those little, like, they're not even rubber, like the,
oh, they're like hard,
from Home Depot.
Home Depot
to
mats.
put on her, the living room floor because she wanted to do it. I was still doing my stuff at the gym. I didn't do the home workout.
I basically had to assemble a gym every day I worked out. I was like, okay, pull him up on the couch.
I'd go in the
assembled him, weigh out the weights.
I'd go in the other room so that I wouldn't be part of the reason she didn't get her workout done. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I, to this day, will not be one of the reasons that you fail in this business. And I think that's, you gotta do it together.
I love that. So powerful. Can I throw one extra thing kind of on you guys? Because I know both of us, we've all kind of spent a lot of time together. And I don't know, Chris, I was just kind of thinking about the conversation that we had at leadership, and just kind of like how you were saying, like your example of putting in time and energy, like in comparison to your business, like into this business, and why it is such a great investment, and like the emotional, I guess, piece of it for you, because I think that's something that a lot of people might be missing in terms of like passing along that belief,
in terms of developing like your own believability.
Yeah, like I think that as a coach, obviously, like you have to have your belief and you're sharing the vision, and they have to see you showing up and putting in the work, and like if you're not doing that, it's harder for them to believe that you're serious about this or take you seriously or support you, right? And then kind of like we were having a conversation about how you were saying like invest, like what you do with your job. Like, why is that different than what we do as coaches? And like, what helped you shift that belief, I guess?
I mean, it really isn't. I work in the liquor industry full time, and I work for a liquor supplier, and the success that you have in the liquor industry is the same as here. It's not about what you sell. It's who you are and how you handle your own business. And at the end of the day, I mean, anybody that's in sales or management or anything like that, like, you take ownership of what you're doing. And a lot of the times it's easy, you know, when you work for Oracle, I work for Stoli, where you have, you know, this idea of what the company is and what it needs to do and what the goals are, and everything's laid out in front of you. And it's easy to kind of follow that and relay that into the market or whatever you do. But at the end of the day, I know that the work that I've done in the market over the last 4 years working for Stoli, nobody has bought Stoli because of that brand. Like, it's because of the relationships that I have genuinely developed in the market with what I do. And that is absolutely no different from what we're doing with Beachbody. You know, it's developing. You have to come up with your own mission statement. You have to come up with exactly what it is that you're doing. But once you do that and figure out who you are and what you're doing it for, it's your opportunity to relay that and create a relationship and genuinely pass that on to somebody else. And, you know, the big switch for me was when I worked and did this with my father. You know, I just put up a post tonight on Facebook about it, actually, because they were here over the weekend. But, you know, the Beachbody originally was all her. And then when we went down to see my parents after the 4th of July in 2015, my father was so overweight and so unhappy and so unhealthy. And I remember sitting there looking at him eating ribs one night and being like, what are you doing? Like, you have so much that you need to stick around for. Like, why are you eating yourself to death, essentially? And, you know, he ended up saying to me, I need to do something. And we took these systems and everything that I have the believability in, and Meredith has the believability in, the product that we are, and I was able to transfer that and pass it on to him. And watching him go through the steps and working with him all the way through just solidified that believability in me of, like, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And I'm completely confident now, and every time I talk to anybody about it, of like, yeah, Meredith gave this to me. It's my job to give this to somebody else. And, you know, when you take ownership of that and really treat it as you passing on something that embodies who you are as a person and what we're doing, I mean, it's hard to not be able to treat that as a business and kind of come up with your own mission statement and pass that on. And it really is, from a corporate standpoint, it's not any different from what I do on my day-to-day with Stoli or what we do with Beachbody. Does that answer it? Did I cover it?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to nail in, like, how your belief changed over time and, like, how that shift happened for you.
Well, I think
that's really powerful.
I wanted to add too, and this is take it or leave it, spouses. But I think where Chris's belief really changed. I mean, he believed in Shakeology. And Megan, I know you asked about downtime and spending time with your husband, so we'll talk about that in the Q&A session, because that's really, really important. That's actually part of my top tips. But my other thing I was going to say, though, is, like, getting your spouse involved. Like, yes, have him drink Shakeology, but I mean, if you're willing, do a freaking program. Like, try it. Just do the 21-day fix or do max 30, at least for a week, and see how you feel, because I guarantee you're going to sweat your butt off and you're going to be like, oh my God. And you're going to feel like that sense of, if you don't want to do it, that's fine, but you at least have the credibility, or your spouse or whoever will have the credibility, because now you're going to say, okay, this is legit. Like, I just got killed by Shanti, you know, or Autumn, this little 5'2", whatever, firecracker. But
Sean
I think
T put me in a body bag with Max.
I think that's when things changed.
So humbling.
I think that's the thing, that's what changed things for you, because he always did his thing at the gym and had, you know, he played semi-pro football. So he had these, like, you know, semi-professional, sometimes professional training regimens that he's following. So he's thinking, like, I could do these with my eyes closed, like, half drunk. And instead he did it like, oh my God, a half hour every day. He'd come up from the gym soaking wet. And we both sweat a lot. That's kind of like, God help our future children, but it's in our genes. But he comes up and he's like, 30 minutes, look at me, 30 minutes every single day. I'm like, I know, I've been telling you this for a year.
I just did max 30 tonight.
Randomly. It changed, you know, his whole belief, I think. So if you haven't tried a program, it's the whole, like, don't knock it till you try it thing. I think, you know, do your spouse a favor and at least try it. You know, if that seems to be the point of contention. And then the other top tip that I wanted to share outside of creating a schedule is just ownership of your business. And I think Danielle and Zack kind of talked about this also, but if you're not taking yourself seriously and you're not running this like a business, you cannot expect your spouse to take you seriously or view it as a business. So if you have self-doubt, if you have feelings about your business that are wishy-washy and you're sort of thinking like, I don't know, am I in, am I out, am I in or out? Your spouse is not going to be in or out, or is not going to be in. You have to make that decision on whether you're in or if you're out and have them follow suit. So I think that's probably the best tip I can give you. You know, when Danielle's talking about, you know, she was talking about Success Club and making sure that Zack knows that and making sure he knows what Elite is, and it's an annual thing. You know, he might not know the point system, but he knows it's annual. So those little things, if you want your spouse to know that, then you better freaking know them yourself. So do your research, go into Coach FAQ and become a student. There's so many resources there for you to be able to become knowledgeable about this. So you don't have to rely on an upline or someone else who's been there and done that. You can be that person that blazes that trail and says, I know what I'm doing and I'm a business owner, and my spouse is going to take me seriously too.
The other thing that's a little tricky, and once, you know, if you have somebody, a spouse that's into it, like there's still times where like I need to push the Beachbody off button, and it happens like more so than we'd all like to admit.
I go
like,
into our schedule talk.
No, it's like you got to treat it like a business. Like you said, at some point you got to leave it behind, because it really is, it's more consuming than any work from home sales job, you know, because of like not only does it become who you are, but like you don't work out to get away from it. You work out to build the business. Like it's just, it's one of those things where you really have to draw a line in the sand and find that balance, you know, whatever it is. It doesn't matter, you know, how you do it, like whether it's walking the dog or you know, board game out of something, but you got to find,
cribbage.
you got to
we have
find
a new obsession with cribbage. If anyone wants a lesson,
you got to find a balance to be able to hit the off switch, because even as supportive as I was and still am, like there's times where I'm like, be enough, like take a deep breath, we'll get back to it. You know, it's because you got to find balance across the board.
Exactly.
That was actually a question, Danielle, if you want to answer that, because I think it's super important about that. The life.
Oh, about the managing your time, like how do you schedule that time in?
And the boundaries, having boundaries.
Okay, so
We just had a conversation.
it's really funny that we were talking about this tonight, because Zack just had to call me on it the other day. Like I was like, I don't know what it is, but I'm not a resolutionist, but I'm totally into like the new year and the fire and the passion and the like excitement of the new year, like a clean slate. I just get really excited about that. Sometimes to an extreme, meaning like for these first couple weeks of the year, I've been working like an insane person. Like I've just been like nonstop working all day. Like, I mean, I was like really honest, like, oh, the kids had iPads all day today. You're welcome. Like I was like having moments like that where I was just like, sorry, like I have to go work now. And he actually had a conversation with me. He's like, do I need to talk to you about setting boundaries and making sure that you're not going to burn yourself out? And I was like, am I ignoring you? Like, am I doing something like, I like, do you feel neglect? He's like, no. He's like, I'm just worried about you, like, and making sure that you're setting boundaries, because he knows how I am. Like, he knows when I burn out and what does it, and he can see the writing on the wall kind of thing. So he's learned to like communicate that with me before I get to that point where I just kind of shut down. But in terms of setting boundaries, I like to think I'm pretty good about making time for us as a couple, making time for us as a family. Like when he's home on the weekends, that we go and do something fun with the kids. Or we spend time, you know, with my family or his family or something. Like we make time, and when we're in those places, I don't tend to work. Like if there's something happening, I will. Like I said, if it's like the last day of the month that I need to hit Success Club. Like there are times when I think we were at your parents' house the last Wednesday of 5-star qualifications. It was a little hectic. But outside of those times, I do check out. We have date night once a week. We are like vigilant about that. Like it's very rarely do we not have a date night in the week, because it's so important to me and to us, like to our relationship. And I will say we didn't do date night the first like 8 months of Lily's life. And that was even pre-Beachbody, just for the record. Like that was before Beachbody. And we instituted a weekly date night, and our relationship is infinitely stronger because of it. Because like when you have kids, those of you that are parents, or even like those of you that aren't, and you're in this business, like you need to have something that's just you, like something that's just, and even if like you don't have babysitters, like I said, we're really lucky to have 2 sets of built-in babysitters that live in town with us. Even if you don't have that, then set a night, say like Friday night, as soon as those kids are asleep, we are sitting down and we are watching a movie together. We are sitting down and having dinner, we're having a picnic on the floor. Like it doesn't have to be expensive, and it does not have to make you have, shut up. Doesn't have to, you know, you don't have to have babysitters. You don't have to have a ton of money, but make that time for each other. See each other in your eyes. Like that's a really important thing. Eye contact when you're communicating is a very important thing. So I'm a big believer, a big fan of date night. and making time for your spouse. Because let's face it, I like him and my kids are going to leave me eventually. So I'd like to be left with something. Anyway, did you want us to share our top 2 tips, Dana? Are we supposed to do that?
Yeah, share your top 2 tips.
Okay, ours are really easy.
Late, so I don't know if we'll have question time, but go for it.
Okay, I'll do it real fast. One, you guys know, everybody say it with me, communication. Communication. I'll try again. No, it's fine. Okay, communication. Biggest thing is communicate. If you don't communicate well now, figure it out and start communicating.
Even if you're complaining about something,
at least you're communicating.
They know that you're upset.
And if your spouse is, okay, and this goes both ways. So if your spouse is complaining to you, do not internalize it and then bitch to yourself about how they're bitching at you. Like if they're complaining to you, have a conversation about it. Be like, I hear what you're saying and I would love to talk about this with you. What do you think is the solution? Like have an adult, productive conversation. And vice versa. Like if you as a coach are complaining about how your spouse doesn't pitch in, have a productive conversation about it. Have an end goal. Don't just complain to complain. Like the same thing you would tell a challenger, you tell anyone else who's being negative in the world. Don't just shoot negativity into the world. Like find a solution. I'm a very solution-oriented person. Like that's just how I roll. What?
Don't go too long.
Sorry. Anyway, yeah, communication. There you go. What's your tip? Go.
My tip is, I don't have a tip, is as a spouse, try to step up if you can. Like if you can see a spot where you can like fill a void or like do an easy thing to help out, do it. Like if you're already making dinner and then you can do the dishes at the same time that were there from last night or the 4 nights previous as it is in our house. You're waiting for noodles to boil, just put some stuff in the dishwasher, wash a couple of things. Those little things add up over time. And as a Beachbody coach person, if you're, I don't know the terms. If your spouse has things that you think would be valuable to you, like if they do graphic design or they are really good with numbers, get them included in those portions of the business where you can utilize them as an asset. Because not only are they going to feel important in the business and like they're contributing actively to the money that's coming in and to the thing that you're building, because it can be a great thing. But you're also going to then communicate more because you'll be talking about the business and other things will come up and you'll be together. And it's just, you're going to grow together in the business, which really is what's going to end up happening whether you like it or not. If you want Beachbody to become a lifelong thing or a thing that's going to get you where you need to be, you're either going to pull your spouse along with you or they're going to have to jump on board, because if you want it bad enough, it's going to be that way and they have to get on board. So,
agreed.
That's what I have to say about that.
I love it. Awesome tips, you guys. If you don't mind, can we take like just 8 minutes for questions or something, or even 5?
Yeah. Can I just chime in real quick about the schedule thing?
Yeah.
I'll make it really quick. And I think this goes for people who have, I'm assuming most people on this call have a spouse, but if you don't have a spouse, I think this goes for like, maybe you're trying to find one, maybe you're out there mingling, I don't know, but like, you got to have balance in this business. And I feel really like the pot calling the kettle black, saying this, because I also have listened to a lot of things from like Gary Vee and other entrepreneurs that have said balance is not a thing when you're creating a business. Like balance does not exist. I think it was Amy Porterfield that said like, you're crazy if you think that you can have balance when you're running a business and getting it started. But I think there's a difference between balance and boundaries. And you have to have, so you got to know and you got to communicate with your spouse that there's going to be some imbalance here. You're going to work your butt off. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to feel overextended and underpaid sometimes. But what you also have to do is make sure that you set aside those times that you have dedicated to the people that are important in your life. Because if you're running yourself into the ground and you aren't your best self, you are not going to be your best self for anyone else, and you're eventually going to push them away. So I think really it's a matter of developing self-awareness in terms of, okay, what does my schedule look like if you work a full-time job or if you're a mom, whatever your priorities are, map those out on paper and say, this is what my week looks like. And where are my pockets of time that I can work this business? And you have to be focused and intense about that time. So if you're logging on and you're just scrolling Facebook and aimlessly sending messages whenever you can, it's not going to be sustainable. You have to say, okay, from 5:30 to 6:30 in the morning, that's my time to send messages. And from 7 to 9 p.m., that's when I check in with my challengers, and that's when I'm sending friend requests or whatever. But be intentional and create that routine and be self-aware enough to know what you can handle and what's sustainable. and also know what your spouse needs or what your social life needs. So that way you can actually maintain some sanity in this business. So I think that's my top tip. And then, Dana wants to do questions.
Well, I'll just say this real fast. At the end of the day, in terms of being a spouse, like obviously my one tip would be to create the vision and reverse engineer it back together and figure out what you guys need to do together to do it there. But as a spouse, at the end of one day, as a spouse, you're going to say, I told you so. And it's on you to say, I told you so that you're going to succeed, or I told you so that you're going to fail. And you got to figure out which side you're on. Because at the end of the day, you want this to succeed for everybody. So you got to say, I told you so, you're going to succeed.
Love it.
Cool. Questions?
I love what you said, balance versus boundaries, Meredith, because you and I are so similar.
So many people come into this thinking, oh, I'm just going to have this balance. And it's like, no, you're going to be a little bit crazy. You got to be a little bit crazy to make this work. I think it's part of the job description. Yep. But that's why we all get along so well, because we have that common crazy gene.
Questions, real quick. Just unmute yourselves and shout it out.
I have a question. I'm going to call my husband out here, but it's more of a question for Zack, because you started out with a lot of faith maybe. So I'm 18 months into the business, 20 months into the business anyway. And it has definitely been a really sore spot for us. I think I've maybe reached out to you guys before about it, but anyway, I guess I just want to know what it was for you. If Summit in your mind, I know Danielle said it, Summit was the turning point for you, but if you think that was the turning point, if that would be, and in your mind, Chris too, I guess, but if that would be helpful. I know Pete isn't super excited to maybe go to Summit, but I could try to convince him. Because obviously I want our marriage to survive as well as the business thrive. So I don't know. I guess I just feel I just want a little more advice from the men. No offense, ladies. I love you, but
both are obviously extremely important. Summit for me was a turning point. I had a vague idea of what she was doing, and I had some benchmarks that I could see that she accomplished that was okay, money is coming in, something is happening here. And we went to Summit, and I saw the community of people. There are so many people that go to Summit, and just the fact that there are so many people who are at varying degrees of every part of the business that are making it work. And there are a lot of people who I met from the these upline team and stuff, and her peers, I guess, who were just a smidge ahead of her making it work, and being able to talk to them in a real world scenario and see what they were thinking was really helpful for me. But also going and one of the coolest things for me about Beachbody is that the heads of the company, Carl Deichler and those guys, are so present with the people that work for them, that going and seeing them, if you go to Summit and you go to all the things, you end up seeing them talk 3 or 4 times. And seeing them talk about their vision for the future of Beachbody and where they see it going based on all of their metrics and all of the data across all of Beachbody opened my eyes to the possibility. One of the problems that I had at the beginning was, how sustainable is this as a business model 20 years in the future? Beachbody is a relatively new company. They've been around 10 years. But the way you hear Carl talk about it, there's this epidemic problem that America has that Beachbody is actively trying to solve. And it's something that's not ever going to go away, because when you start on the journey, if you can get people to start and to be active and to make these changes for themselves, they become, I would assume it's happened for me, where you feel better and you want to keep going with it. So then you're naturally going to turn back to the things that have already worked for you. So that was one of the big things, is that I could see Beachbody becoming a long-term solution for our problems, which is debt and wanting to be with our children. And I work in quality and manufacturing for plastics injection molding, and I have no interest in doing that at all. I started out of college and I'd rather be home and doing my own thing. So Summit for me, and plus it is kind of, if you're lucky enough to be able to go without your kids, I saw that you guys have a couple of kids at least. If you're lucky enough that you can pawn them off for a few days on a grandparent and you can go, it's a mini vacation because you're not always doing stuff, you know. It's going to be in New Orleans and there's going to be fun things to go and see, and you guys can kind of connect again. And when you're in the experience, you'll be able to talk about that actively while you're watching things happen, and in between events you'll be able to tell each other what you're thinking. Something was very important for me. I started to understand what Beachbody is about and not what coaching is about. And for me, that really opened my eyes. Does that help you at all?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I've wanted him to go with me.
But I also am a very literal person, and I look at things without a lot of emotion and other things as well. And you know, and right away when I'm like, you got to pay $20 to go see your CEO speak. Any company, it's free to see a CEO speak. That's part of the company, and so I see a lot of those things.
I don't know what $20 you're talking about.
It's $20. Oh no,
$200 maybe.
No, $20 to go see the Super Saturday thing.
Oh,
or whatever.
Super Saturday. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm like,
Okay, but I'll speak to that. Just being on the market council, the $20 does not go to Carl Deichel. That $20 goes to the market council who puts on the event. So, like, they have to pay for like the venue and they pay for various things. So, like, that doesn't actually go to Carl. But I get what you're saying, and actually, like, you and Zack should talk because, like, he's also, like, I pointed to him when he said you're a very literal person. Like, Zack is not a pre-Beachbody, like, before Summit, he is not a dreamer. And I still would say you're not really a dreamer. Like, he's not, like, he's very, like, feet planted on the ground. Like, if anything, he holds me to the ground. Like, that's just kind of how he is.
What has to happen today?
Yeah, like, what happens today? Like, debt. Like, we have to talk about money. Like, he's very, like, what is the return? Like, he's
well, and like, my issue has never been with my belief in her and what she can do and what she's doing. And it's the amount of effort that she's put into it is amazing. And it's more of understanding the nuts and bolts. And I look at things like, okay, so you're making $6,000 a month. Well, you're not really making $6,000 a month. You got to take out taxes, 401k, health benefit, you know.
Yes, I'm not making $6,000 a month.
But that's cool. You know, just throwing something out there. That's how I look at things, and that's what matters. And it sucks because I feel like, you know, that drags my appreciation for her efforts down, because that's what I look at.
It's like only
that's nail on the head though. Like, we're running businesses. Like, what you just said, all of that is legit. Like, that needs to be factored into it. So, like, when you talk about reverse,
it doesn't make you a jerk.
No, you hit the nail on the head. It's true. But, like, so when you talk about reverse engineering, like, what it is that you need to do to hit certain levels to pay off certain bills, including those taxes, like that, then you have to start factoring that, Laura, into what you're doing and the time that you're spending. Is it putting towards building that the right way, and like the vital behaviors that you're putting into to get to that point, like reverse engineering that together. And like, you know, if you know, you guys can find a way to figure out what strengths work so that he can free up time for you to do that, or you free up time to do something else. It's like, you got to figure out a way to do that. Because I mean, as much as it's fun to say like the believability and the rah losing, like, it's a business. We're here to make money, and all of that is legit. Like, we have to pay taxes. It's coming up in a month and a half. Like, that all has to be forecasted in. And if you're not doing the same amount of planning on a financial level, like, you're never going to be able to get over that next bump in terms of from a financial standpoint. I guess that would be I think the one thing about Summit though is, at least for me, is like when I went down there for the first time, it made it real. And I know that sounds dumb, but when you have this online business, like, there's 4 or 5 people on this call that I've never met before in person, but I know you from social media. Like, it's all this abstract. We all work over the internet. When you're in, and like, you know, you and I get to sit down and have a beer, it becomes real. And you and I can kind of like connect over what the girls are doing, and like the community that comes from it. It's not just the Beachbody community. It's like the man-to-man piece. Like, I met more guys down there that are in my boat that not only made me more comfortable with what she was developing, but like, it got me more into it. Like, there's kids that I talk to every once in a while that I'm more excited to see on like the Success Club trip, or a couple kids that I'd never met before that I'm excited to see at Summit. Because they're going to go work out together and slap each other high fives when Carl launches like the new product. But just like, because they're legit guys that are kind of in the same situation. So Summit definitely made it real. But at the end of the day, like what you said is needs to be said. I think needs to be said more is like there are financial responsibilities to all of this. And like the 401k and definitely the taxes piece is huge in terms of that reverse engineering a plan. And that's definitely something that I think we did together and that every definitely should do together.
Well, I feel like we could have a whole separate talk on how to reverse engineer your financial goals, because I think we all know in this business, like the first 2 years kind of suck. If I'm being honest, the first 2 years are the toughest. And even then, like I'm in the tier 2 to 3 and it's still tough, but I'm looking at the growth as opposed to looking at how far I am from where I thought I would be or how far I am from where I want to be. Because I know if I'm making some money, I'm still climbing. It's still happening. And if you look at people like Liz Harkey, I mean, she's been very open about sharing her numbers. Like her second year and third year, she wasn't making buco bucks. It was in like the fourth and fifth year where all of a sudden that sacrifice, that down payment that you put in terms of your time and the effort and all that stuff, that's now paying off. But you have to stick around to see it through. Otherwise, I think the truth they say people quitting is like years 1 to 2 because of that reason. Because it's like, what the hell? Like I'm paying all this money in taxes. I'm not making any profit. And my time I'm worn thin, where it's like you feel burnt. But if you can stick it out for that extra year and like Chris said, make sure your time is being spent in the places where you're most productive and where you're getting your return, which is connecting with new people, sharing your vision and finding people that want to be part of that vision because they also want to be debt free or they also want to, be healthier, whatever it is. I think the more you can share that and be confident in it, the more you're going to be successful. Because if you have any sense of doubt in your mind that like you're not going to get to where you want to go, that bleeds through all of your messages. It bleeds through your posts and people can sense it when you talk to them. And they're going to go, maybe not. I'll stick with my 9 to 5. So you have to be so confident that like your freight train is going to the destination.
And the other, I think it's a
problem
with social media too, is like everybody, like think about this real fast. When you put something up on social media, you get to dictate like how you're feeling and how that relays. Like, there's something really powerful in that. But the comparison game that we all naturally play with like other people who are successful in this business and you looking at somebody else's page or this girl did this and this girl's posting this, you got to realize that like you can only control what you can control and do what you can do. And if you're better off than you were the day before and you're working towards that goal, what somebody else does has no bearing on it. So to compare yourself to somebody who, you don't even know that's just posting on social media saying like, oh, I'm not, where they were in year 2 and this is a failure, that's naturally going to happen. We all play the comparison game, but just you got to treat it like your own business in terms of that.
Kim's husband wants to have a beer with you.
Oh.
He's down, Kim. Sign him up.
It's all.
We're on like a success trip, so we'll see you all there, I think. Yeah, but he's definitely coming on that. He's down for that.
A fun trip. Yeah. Good job.
Yeah.
It's all laying groundwork. You keep saying it. The first couple of years are really, really hard, but the work that you're putting in now is just your bedrock for where you can reach from. You're gonna start finding those good people that will give you a great solid foundation where you don't have to. You're not going from $0 to $300 a week. You're going to stay at. I know I'm guaranteed this X amount of dollars a week, and then you can start planning with that sort of thing in mind. My grandpa has built. He's retired now, thank God. He's been working forever, but he's built 3 or 4 different companies from the ground up, and each time it takes him 5 years. He's told me it's at least 5 years in a standard business model before you make any profit. All of it is on the bank to give you money. And it takes that long, and he's doing what I do now, plastic injection molding for most of the time. It takes that long to make it anywhere where you're starting to turn a profit and making benefits for your employees and stuff. So this is a different business model. Obviously, the MLM structure is completely different, but you still have to put in probably longer than you want. You're all of a sudden you're going to hit this point where I can't go. Nothing is coming out. If you push through that wall, something will happen. And I think that it's important maybe for your guys' situation that maybe you have already. I've never talked to you before. I apologize. But make sure that you have clear goals as to what your financial situation, where you want to be at and when you want to be there.
Factoring in all those things you talked about, like factoring in the taxes and the expenses and all of these.
You have to take out whatever you take. 1/3 of it has to go straight to taxes. So don't even factor that in to your income. You know what I mean? That has to go away immediately. And if if you have a job with a benefits package already, that's great. And then you just have to know how much does that cost. Start doing your research now. Well, depending on what happens, of what private insurance costs, okay, if I want to quit my job and maintain the kind of insurance I have, I need X amount of dollars, so that you can plan. If I want to quit my job in a year and it costs this much for taxes, this much for benefits package, my kid's school costs this much, I need to at least be making, $48 to do that, obviously, because that's what it costs to do anything. That's kind of one thing that we haven't done enough of is strict financial planning and like that kind of thing.
2017, it's our year.
But those kinds of goals, concrete number goals, even if you don't reach it, knowing where you want to be is a great place to start. And it's very scary. And when it's hard, you have to push if you want it to work, because otherwise if you quit, then you're not going to get anything. You'll be in the same place you are right now. So.
I think that I don't want to drag this out, I'm sorry, but I just have to say, like, when he started opening up to me about his vision and his dreams that, like, we never talked about before, because he was so follow the line, you get a job, you do this, like, you just, like, you follow, like, this path, right? But when he started sharing those things, it totally, well, one, it lit my fire in a completely different way, because now it wasn't just about my dreams, it was about his dreams. And there's something about that that's just so much, it's just like thinking about your coach's dreams and things. It's just so powerful. So if you guys haven't had conversations like that, where not just financially where you want to take this, but what that will mean for you and your family, like we've started having conversations like, well, next year we really want to, if we pay off our debt this year, we really want to take the girls on a surprise vacation to DISMUI. They're still awake. So like we talked about these things that we want to do. Oh no. As a family, and what we want to do together when that debt doesn't exist. And so it's not just about, how much money you're making and the taxes and the expenses, but translate that into something that means something for the both of you. Like, does that mean you get to travel more and see family more? Does that mean that, you get to quit your job? Like, what does that mean for you guys? Because I think that just takes on a whole completely different meaning then, instead of just dollars and cents.
Because we're kind of that way, where I would prefer to look at, once our debt is at zero, then think about the future. She would rather think about the future, and then it motivates me. Have that be why we get to zero for debt. 1 second, sweetheart. So we were opposite that way. So we constantly, it's one of our disconnects is that I have to realize that when she's talking about, well, when we're debt free and we can go travel to Paris 3 times a year, I'm like, well, no, wait, hold on. Step 1 is pay off the debt. But when it's the other way around. Sometimes I have to be like, okay, she needs to dream this way so that, I don't know.
Figure out what motivates you, basically. Like, so if you're a literal person, but she's not, that might be a big disconnect for you. And we only realized this like 2 weeks ago, just for the record. Like, it was literally really recent that we realized, like, because I said that's our big goal this year, is to be debt free. But for me, I can't focus on the dollars and cents because it takes the joy out of the business for me. I can't focus on my income growth because it takes the people out of it for me. So I have to focus where I still feel motivated by those things that fill me up. But when I translate it to him, I have to translate it in terms that motivate him, which is I paid off this credit card this week. So have a conversation about that. And if that's something that you're disconnecting on, figure out a way to communicate that better. Because sometimes it's just translating it. Like, that's the way I look at it. It's like, I still mean what I mean, but I'm translating it into terms that make him excited too. So we can be excited together. So maybe that's something that, like you going to Summit might not enthuse you. Like, it might not make you're like, yay, I'm going to Summit. But if it makes your wife happy and if it builds this business faster for her and for your family, it's worth the sacrifice. Like, it's one of those, like, okay, I'll suck it up and I'll pay the $200 and I'll sacrifice my weekend and I'll put on a happy face and it'll be fine.
Something like Summit, from what I've experienced with coaches, is something like those events, or even the Success Club trip. It's a cup filler. So when you're the coach and you're putting out these posts that are really vulnerable, and you're putting it out there, you're getting people attracted to your identity and what you want to do as a business, it drains you. And especially if you've been going at it 20 months and not gone to an event that's really powerful or really uplifting, it's going to be hard to maintain that pace. But going to a summit or something where all of a sudden you're going to be recharged. You're going to be around these people who are excited. You're going to hear great new ideas from the top coaches in the company who are making it work and have put in the time and have great tips for you. Then you're going to come back and all of a sudden it's July and you're going to be running to the end of the year. And then as a spouse, then you can sort of sit back and do more dishes rather than hear them complain about their success club points.
Plus, you can't have a beer together over a Zoom chat.
Yeah,
I was going to say, can we orchestrate a males only call and take ourselves out of this equation?
Seriously.
Yeah, as long as there's beer involved.
I think it's needed, and I think beers are good with everyone.
Yeah. Or whiskey, sure. Oh, sorry, vodka.
What?
Oh, vodka. Stoli. Only Stoli.
Anything but Tito's.
Alrighty, guys. Well, it is 10 o'clock. I didn't intend to keep you this long, but I told you it was a much needed topic. So thank you all so much for taking time out of your night to come on and share with us. I know that everybody's already saying how helpful it was. I'm so grateful. I know this is going to impact a lot of them moving forward in their business this year. And if there is more questions for you, if you guys don't mind, I will shoot those over to you, and I will get the recording to you too so you can share it with your teams. But thank you guys, and thank you everybody for hopping on and listening, spouses included. We totally appreciate you taking the time out of your night.
Kimberly, where are you? It's an hour ahead.
St. John on the Virgin Islands.
Ah, must be nice.
You say we gotta talk.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you for having us. Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Have a good night.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.